So there's a whole lot of things going on in the industry, in the wider world. At Microsoft, you've got lots of projects and excitement, and you had a bit of a reorg, and you've got a bunch of stuff going on. But I just want to take just a very brief time to ask you where you think the economy is. And the reason I ask him this is he really has been, in our conversations privately and here at D actually, I think very clear-headed in talking about it, and not very upbeat last time. So where do you think things stand? And generally, and also for, you know, the PC industry or the digital industry.
Yeah. I would say developed world, things have come off the lows, for sure. I think our industry is even more revved up about, you know, how good the economy is than maybe some others, but we've all been in a good product cycle. Windows 7, Apple's had a cycle, a lot of product cycles going on that have really propelled the market. But certainly consumer market in developed countries coming back, no question. We've started to see some comeback in business spending, and then we get the Greek question. And I just, you know, what's the old expression? You know, burn me once, shame on me, burn me, or whatever the heck it is. Shame on you. Me, yeah, that one. I think now people are asking what will happen. And I don't think anybody's smart enough to know, and it partly depends on what government intervention happens, which seems to have been relatively aggressive. So at least for now, we continue to see, again, developed countries, business coming back. Emerging countries fall into two categories. Most of them, many of whom are natural resource driven, and they will reflect what's going on elsewhere in the world's economy. So if things are good, they'll be good because commodity prices will be up. Russia would reflect that, just as an example. And then, of course, you get China, which is going gangbusters, and yet the regime of intellectual property protection from not just a Microsoft perspective, but I think anybody in the technology business, intellectual property protection is as weaker, much weaker, frankly, than anywhere else in the world, which I think will be problematic for our industry going forward.
Obviously, these shifts it's not a binary thing. You don't automatically say, oh, everything's on a server, nothing's on my local device. Although there are people who fervently believe that and talk about it.
I dispute that, in fact. I think everybody has their own rhetoric. But at the end of the day, almost all players in the business, our money, but I'd say all players in the business, believe you're going to run a lot of code and do a lot of storage down on clients, whether those are phones, PCs, TVs. Everybody says it a little differently. I mean, when people say, I love HTML5, which you won't find anybody who won't put up their hand and say, I love HTML5 and JavaScript, they're saying they actually like a pretty rich processing, storage, graphics engine that runs down on the client. Now, how you feed that, how much executes locally, what executes up on the server, there'll be some variation around that. How much do people have their own code that extends and surrounds HTML5? You might get some different answers if you talk to the Firefox guys, or if you talk to us, or if you talk to, you know, Google, Apple, guys we compete with. But at the end of the day, I think actually the world we're talking about is sort of driven from the cloud out, but it's smart cloud talking to mostly smart devices, phones, PCs, TVs, and apps that execute locally but are controlled and kind of seamlessly integrate with the cloud is the right world to envision.
So it's not a case where you can, there's like going to be a big opportunity for people to build, I don't know, dumb devices or really, you know, really cheap devices that can't do much on their own unless they're connected. That's not the way you see the world.
You'll get really cheap devices, but the experiences people want will almost always have a relatively smart processor with some reasonable amount of storage and a reasonable amount of graphics down on, I mean, the irony is that the products, you know, if you look at the success we're having today with Windows 7, you look at what's going on anywhere with smartphones from any vendor, us or anybody else, it's all about getting a little smarter down on the client. It's not about getting thinner on the client. The trend actually is to have higher-end graphics chips in those things, to be able to do more processing locally in those things, not ignoring the cloud, but in a way that's seamlessly integrated with the cloud.